Hi, and welcome to your ekphrastic poetry lesson plan. This lesson plan was originally intended for ninth grade literature, but you can certainly use it for literature classes from probably 8th to 11th grades, depending on how you adjust it, or for any general English class, probably more focused towards the older students in high school, ninth, 10th, and 11th grade. I'm going to go through each lesson. There are a total of 5 in this plan, and we'll just go through them one by one. And then I will let you know what you can do to add to them if you want to extend these lessons, or if you want to contract them, what you can take away. All right, so in the first page, I let you know what materials you will be needing. Everything in this lesson is available online. I have included all of the links in the lesson. So when you are teaching, make sure that you have this lesson plan open somewhere in the background so that you can click on the links whenever you need them. I use the arts and culture section of Google quite frequently here, so you will want to make sure to put that in your bookmarks. If you are familiar with it, it has a collection of many museums where you can find a lot of art. I have included links for The Sleeping Gypsy, Still Life with Three Puppies, and The Scream here on this lesson plan, but you can certainly choose any other paintings you want if you have your favorites. I definitely recommend using The Scream by Edward Munch as an example for lesson 3 when you start writing your poems, but we'll get to that soon enough. All right, so those are some paintings that we use in the first lesson, and then the poems that we use in lesson 2 are linked here. So this is just the overview. And again, for this video tutorial, we'll be doing a step-by-step walkthrough of each lesson plan, and I'll be giving you ideas for how to expand or contract your lessons. All right, so for the first lesson, I have the main overview here. Our aim is to get students comfortable using a wide variety of adjectives and descriptive language to discuss visual art, and we'll be focusing more on speaking skills, vocabulary and context, and critical thinking skills. So in the first lesson, you are going to look at some paintings together and ask the students some questions about the paintings. This is to get the students thinking about what kind of adjectives can they use to describe what they see in the painting. So actual observation of just exactly what is in there. And also think about the emotional effects of art. So when they look at a painting, how does that make them feel? What does that inspire in their hearts? Okay, and getting them to talk about these things is the major part of it. So I've linked some paintings here, and the first example is The Sleeping Gypsy. So you'll just look at one of these paintings and ask the students questions about it. So this is the first painting that I chose. I think it's beautiful and I really enjoy it. Lesson 2. In this lesson, you and your students are going to talk about ekphrastic poetry specifically. So you will be looking at specific poems that go together with paintings and talking about why the poet wrote the poem that way and giving them ideas so that they can write their own acrostic poems. Again, I've included the links here with the materials. So those include the links to the paintings and the associated poems that are used. The goal of this is that they will be familiar with poetry written about visual art so that they will be able to write their own acrostic poems in lessons 3 and 4. All right, so the first painting and poem is Starry Night. Okay, so you will start by looking at the painting itself and having a discussion about it like you did in lesson 1. Okay, and the second part will be to read the poem that is written about the painting. So we can see here a smaller version of Starry Night. I'm sure you're all familiar with this painting by Vincent van Gogh. And the link to the poem is here in the handout as well. So you will take a look at the poem, which we will do now. And after having a discussion about the painting, you can look at the keywords in the poem. Okay, I like to have one of the students read the poem, or I will read it myself, depending on the level of the students. Okay, so we can see this poem is a little bit dark, but Van Gogh was kind of a dark painter, wasn't he? So, the town does not exist, except where one black-haired tree slips up like a drowned woman into the hot sky. The town is silent. The night boils with 11 stars. Oh, starry, starry night, this is how I want to die. Wow, that's dark. Okay, so after reading through the entirety of the poem, I would ask the students, okay, where is the town? Do you see a town in this painting? Yes. One black-haired tree. Do you think there's a black-haired tree? If you do, can you circle it on the screen? And have them do that. We would talk about a drowned woman. Do we think we see a drowned woman somewhere in that painting? What about the stars? Are there exactly 11 stars in that painting? Why is this person talking about death? Is there anything in this painting that might make someone think about death or think about the end of their life? So take whatever key words you find in the painting or in the poem and see if you can connect those to the painting somehow. And just do that together with your class. So you can ask them these specific questions. What's the relationship between the poem and the painting? Is this poem describing the painting itself? Or do you think this poet is in the painting somewhere? Is she in that town? Or do we think this person, this poet, is writing from the perspective of the painter? So we want to get the students to think about the relationship between the poem and the painting and what perspective the poet is taking on the painting. So you'll repeat that for, I would say that you should go over at least 2 paintings and associated poems, although 3 is probably better. And this will take quite some time. It will probably take the whole lesson to talk about the paintings and the poems and their relationship. And this is the last one, which is Nighthawks. And the poem I have put here. Okay. So remember, talking to them about what the relationship is between the poem and the painting and who the poet is describing. Is the poet describing the painting itself, or are they taking the perspective of the painter, or are they taking the perspective of what it's like to be in the world that the painting provides? Students will have a lot of different ideas about this. So you can just encourage them to be as creative as possible and imaginative, because that's the point. Being imaginative and talking as much as possible. So get those students to talk. Lesson 3 to 5. In these lessons, you are going to be preparing your students to write their own ekphrastic poems. They will be writing them, and then they will be sharing them. All right. So in these lessons, we're hoping that the students will be as creative as possible, and that they will really be able to use all of the words that they know that have to do with emotions and feelings and descriptions and everything related to art. Okay, so in lesson 3, you will be working together with the students to write a poem together as a class before splitting them into groups to start working on their own poems. So I do suggest using the Scream for the example poem because I find that it is a painting that students find very easy to relate to, especially these days, because, well, you'll see. If you're not familiar with the Scream, well, I'm sure you're familiar with the Scream. Let's take a look at it. So this is by Edward Munch from 1910. So the first thing that you'll do when getting the students to think about how they want to write a poem about this is to bring up the questions that you brought up in lesson 1. How does this painting make you feel? What does it look like? What do you see? So the questions that you use from the first lesson will be used to create a brainstorm. And the students should brainstorm everything they can about this painting. So you might ask them some of these questions, right? What is the painting of? What do you see? Are there people, animals? So we could say, I see, there's a man, or maybe some people might think it's a woman. There are boats. She's on a bridge. Okay. And are there any other people in the painting? Well, there were some people walking by, walking away. All right. What do you feel when you look at this painting? I feel scared. I feel anxious. I feel, a lot of people will say, I feel scream. So you could say, okay, she's screaming or he's screaming, yelling. All right. And then you might ask, well, why do you think this person is screaming or yelling? Well, because they're scared, or because they're anxious, or maybe because no one can hear them. Okay, no one can hear. So whatever ideas the students come up with, just write them all down on the screen. In addition to that, you can have students write their ideas on the screen themselves too with the annotate function in Zoom. When I use that function, I do prefer to hide the names of annotators so that the students don't feel self-conscious about sharing their ideas. That way it won't show which student is writing at what time. So I do recommend doing that. Okay, and step 1 is to have them brainstorm as many words and phrases as possible using the questions from lesson 1. Write all of those ideas on the screen. Make sure you get everything down. Then use those bits and pieces and put them together to make a poem. All right. And that's it. Now you have your poem. So lesson 3 has a handout as well. So once you've done that with the class a couple of times, you can tell students to go to the Google Classroom where they will find this handout, okay? And it will be their job in groups to write a poem about a painting of their choice. So they can go to the Arts and Culture website, and this has many different museums available. So they can choose one of the museums. Let's say that they choose the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Okay. There are many, many, many paintings there. So let's take a look at this painting, perhaps. Okay. So no matter which museum they choose, there will be many paintings in each one, and they can choose anyone they like and then use that painting to inspire them to write a poem. So they should describe the painting and brainstorm everything that comes up, and then take the words and phrases from the brainstorm to put them together in a poetic way. This is an example of a poem that some students of mine wrote. So these were in teams of 4. You split them into breakout rooms and they will work together. They should put the picture in the document. This team went ahead and included some of the words from their brainstorm. So cafe, night view, terrace of cafe, people wearing colorful clothes, okay? And then the poem here. My first trip to France, a backpacking trip alone. I feel like a bitter cotton candy in a night cafe, espresso that I drink alone. The crowded sounds of people and songs mingling with espresso. My feeling is like a sweet cotton candy. So, short and sweet poem, but all things take time. So it's fine if it takes them a whole period to finish a poem. I have another example of a poem that a different group wrote. This one is about the Dali painting here. And as requested, this group included the link for where they found the painting. And they have a longer poem here. Okay, so some groups' poetry will be longer, some will be shorter. Either is fine as long as they are doing the best they can to express what the painting means to them and says to them.